Hey guys, it's Ty and welcome back to my channel. So today we are back with another recent reads. Now I actually enjoyed majority of these books. I have quite a few 4-star reads to talk about. However, there are a few books in here that I just assumed I was going to like a lot more than I did, but there were just like aspects of the story that didn't work for me. Therefore, I could not rate them higher than what I did. With that being said, I actually only have 2 DNFs. The rest are either 3 or 4 stars, and sadly, I don't have any 5-star reads, but we will go ahead and start with the 2 books I had to DNF. The first one that I unfortunately had to put down is The Raven Scholar. This is a adult fantasy, and I was really surprised that this just didn't work for me because I've been hearing rave reviews. I have been recommended this book. It also kind of weaves in fantasy with mystery, 2 things that I really enjoy. So I really thought that I was going to enjoy this one, and that was not the case. So in this world, it is divided up into 8 different factions that have like animal names. So we have the ravens, the hounds, the bears, so forth and so on. And so every 24 years, it's time for a new emperor or empress to be chosen. In order for that to happen, different competitors from each of the factions have to compete in some trials, and whoever wins, they will become the next emperor for the next 24 years. Our main character that we're following is, I think her name is Nima. So we're following Nima. She's actually from the Raven Palace. She is a scholar, and right before these trials start, the person that is representing the Raven Palace, they are actually found murdered. And so Nima then has to take that person's place, but she also is tasked with trying to figure out who murdered this person, and then the story just goes from there. I found this story to be very boring and slow. Now, the prologue, I think it's about 30 or 40 pages. Absolutely love the prologue. It hooked me. And after I read the prologue, I was like, yes, this is probably going to be a 5-star read for me. Then we get into the story and we actually follow different characters than who was in the prologue. Those characters do come up, but they're not like the primary characters that we're following. At least not to where I got in the story. And so once we started following Nima, I got really bored. I only made it through 2 of the trials. The trials did not feel like they were high stakes at all. The first one was them just fighting against each other. Okay. And then the second trial, they had to find their way in like this underground tunnel, and it was so boring. And the stakes just did not feel high enough for me. I did not make it that far in the story. So the trials, as they progressed, could have gotten more and more serious, but where I left off, they were not. I also didn't really care for like the mystery. It kind of felt like it was taking a backseat to the overall story. And then there was like this kind of romance subplot that I just wasn't here for. This just did not do what I thought it was gonna do for me. And I'm sad to say, I had to put this one down. The other only DNF that I have, this also is sad for me. This is The Possession of Alba Diaz by Isabel Cañas. This is a historical horror book, and this one was on my most anticipated reads for this year, and it severely let me down. Now, I only made it 88 pages in, but again, this is something that I just felt was extremely boring. So this takes place in the 1700s, 1765. We're following Isabel, and her family is fleeing this plague that has came through. So she's gone with her parents and her fiance, and they're going to her fiance's residence. Then also we're following, I forget, Elias, who is her fiance's cousin or friend. I think they're related. I think they're cousins. He ends up coming along as well. And then from where I got to, once they got to the residence, they went into this cave, and Isabel started hearing stuff. Now, based off of the title and the description, eventually I'm assuming that she's going to get possessed, but that is not what happened at the point that I stopped. she just started hearing stuff. And like I said, it was just really boring. So back in this time, I guess Mercury was a really big thing because all they talked about was Mercury and how they had to find Mercury and how they had to like sell the Mercury for money. Like we talked about it so much, and I cannot tell you how much I did not care. I did not care about the Mercury. I was here for the possession, and the possession part was taking too long to get there. Now, when I first read this author, the first book that they came out with was The Hacienda. Absolutely loved that book. But then the next book that they came out with, Vampires of El Norte, that did not work for me. This did not work for me. So I'm not sure whether or not this is going to be an author that I continue to read in the future. But this is a book that I also had to put down. So now we're gonna jump into my 3-star reads. I have quite a few of those, and we're gonna start off with The Business Trip by Jessie Garcia. So this is a adult mystery, and we're following these two ladies. So we have Stephanie and Jasmine. Stephanie is about to be traveling to this conference out in LA. Jasmine is traveling because she is trying to escape her abusive boyfriend. They both end up on the same flight together. We then stop hearing their POVs, and then the story kind of switches, and then we start hearing POVs from people in both of their lives. Mind you, these women don't know each other. And so we start hearing from one of Jasmine's friends. We start hearing from a lot of Stephanie's co-workers. And so what we find out is that at some point, both Stephanie and Jasmine meet this man named Trent. And from text messages that these people in their lives are getting from these two is that Trent is this guy that seems to be great, handsome, good looking, and apparently both of these women are going to Atlanta to spend additional time with Trent. Things start to happen where people aren't believing the things that they are getting in these text messages from these two, and they think that Trent might have put these women in danger, and the story kind of takes off. In the beginning, I was hooked. So this kind of has like a non-linear timeline. So basically, when you're getting the POVs from these other people in their life, like it'll be like 2 days before the flight, 1 day before the flight, few hours before the flight, 2 days after the flight. And I really liked that it was jumping around like that. It kind of was a little bit confusing in the beginning, but once you get the hang of it, I actually liked how the story was told. I actually liked the direction that the story was going in. And then we got to the end. Now, I'm okay with like when a twist is a little bit far-fetched, but this one was just ridiculous. I just could not believe that that was the direction that this story took. Had we gotten a different ending than what we got in this one, I probably would have rated it higher. But that ending, that final twist was just, it was silly, it was ridiculous, and I just could not get behind it. But otherwise, like I said, I gave this one 3 stars, and I'm actually curious to check out something else from this author. Another 3-star read we have is Play Nice by Rachel Harrison. This is a adult horror, and this is actually my first book by Rachel Harrison. This is an author that I've heard quite a bit about over these last couple of years, and so I was really excited to check out this one, especially because I had heard such good reviews. So in this, we're following our main character, Cleo. And when Cleo was younger, her and her sisters were living with their mother. Their mother was actually divorced from their father. In the house that they were staying in, their mother swore that the house was possessed. And so much so that she became obsessed with proving that this house was possessed and trying to get rid of this demon she claimed was in this house. Their father did not believe it. The girls did not believe it. And at a certain point, the father actually got custody of the sisters, and they did not have any more contact with their mother. So at the start of the story, Cleo and her sisters find out that their mother passed away. She actually passed away in that house. And now Cleo has decided that she is going to volunteer to pack up this house and get it ready to sell. Now, when she's in the house, she starts to suspect that she also thinks that maybe her mother wasn't lying and something is in fact in this house. She also finds the book that her mother had wrote about the things that took place in this house. So while she's staying there, she's reading the book and she's starting to realize that some of the things that her mother wrote in this book is also happening in this house, and the story just kind of goes from there. So this is one where I liked parts of this story. So we actually get sections from the book that her mother wrote. Those were the parts that I really enjoyed. I thought those were so creepy, and I could have gotten a book with just their mother's book, just her talking about what happened in this house. So outside of that, I did not really like Cleo as a character. I felt like she was kind of bratty. She's spoiled. She's the youngest sister. And so you can tell that she's like the younger sibling because she kind of gets everything she wants, especially from her father. But when we got to her sections or her POV, it just felt like the story was kind of silly. Like the tone kept shifting back and forth with this story, and I did not really care for that. I'm not sure if this is what Rachel Harrison does in like her other books, but for this one and for this type of story, I just kind of wanted like one tone throughout. I was going into this thinking that I was just gonna get like a true horror story, and that's not necessarily what this is. I mean, it is that, but it also leaned a little bit on the sillier side with the sister that we followed. But in the end, I did like it. I just didn't like it as much as I wanted to. But with that being said, I do want to check out something else from Rachel Harrison. If you guys have read a lot from her, please tell me what I should check out next. So next up, we have Her One Regret by Donna Freitas. I think is how we're going to pronounce that last name. But this is a adult fiction with a little bit of mystery in there as well. So at the start of this, we follow this girl, this woman, Lucy. Lucy is at the grocery store. She's with her young daughter, and all of a sudden she disappears. So then we start to follow her friend, and I forget her name. We start to follow her best friend, Michelle. And we also follow this random lady. I think her name was like Julia. I think it's Julia. Let me check. Julia. We follow this random lady, Julia. Okay, so Michelle is best friends with Lucy. Michelle also has children. She loves being a mother. She loves the relationship that she has with her husband and how they parent their children. Now, Michelle knows that Lucy was really struggling with motherhood to the point that Lucy had said that she actually regrets becoming a mother. And she also alluded to the fact that she wouldn't mind if maybe she got kidnapped so that she would no longer have to be a mother. So then we're following Julia. Like I said, Julia is this random woman. And Julia absolutely hates her life as a mother. She only ended up getting pregnant because that's really what her husband wanted. However, her husband has not really been helpful with her raising their son. So she is really struggling as well. So basically, this book is commentary on motherhood. The highs, the lows, not being supported as a mother, the things mothers have to sacrifice once they have children, how they're being judged when they tell their true feelings about how they feel as mothers, with a tiny mystery in there about what happened to Lucy. When this book first started, I actually really enjoyed the commentary about motherhood. I think a lot of the stuff that this book talked about is stuff that a lot of people wish they could talk about in regards to motherhood, but don't do it because of fear of being judged. And so I really liked that the author spent some time on that. However, I thought the author spent too much time on that. This is marketed as a mystery. I said that it was more of a fiction because that's what it read like to me. We talk so much about motherhood, and then every once in a while we'll talk about Lucy and try to figure out what happened to her. I just wish there was a better balance between the commentary and the mystery. When I picked this up, I was looking more for a mystery with a little bit of commentary. However, it's commentary with a little bit of mystery. So I think this is something that you will enjoy if you have the right expectations going into this. However, I also feel like this could be triggering from some people with the topic of motherhood. So if it sounds good and that might be a triggering topic for you, then I would hesitantly go into this. But this is a book that I would recommend. Like I said, it's just something that I think you would enjoy if you have the right expectations. My next 3-star read is Widow's Point, The Complete Haunting by Richard Sizemore and W.H. Sizemore. This is a father-son duo. So this is another adult horror, and this is told strictly through mixed media. So we have news articles, emails, video footage, recordings, that type of thing. So what this story revolves around is this lighthouse, the Widow's Point Lighthouse. It was built in the 1800s. Ever since it was built, there have been some strange things that have happened at this lighthouse. People have gone missing. People have been in some strange accidents. People have been murdered. People have been like murdered in the surrounding area around the lighthouse. So there's some things going on. If I were any of these characters, I probably would stay far, far away. But of course, we know that does not happen. So we're in 2 different timelines. The first timeline we start off with is in 2017. This man decides that he wants to get some paranormal footage, and he is going to spend a weekend in the lighthouse. Needless to say, that did not go well. So then later we jump into 2025, and we have a group of paranormal investigators that are going to spend a week, the week of Halloween, at this lighthouse. Needless to say, some things happened. For the most part, I enjoyed this. As you guys know, I love anything that has to do with like mixed media. I love when authors can tell a complete story in that format. So that was a huge win for me. I did think parts of this story was creepy. My favorite part of the story actually is just getting like backstory on the lighthouse. I could have gotten like a whole book with like lighthouse background. But by the end of this, for me, I thought that it got a little cheesy with some of the horror elements. It just wasn't as scary as I wanted it to be, but I did have a good time with this nonetheless. I do think this will probably be a good book. 1, if you like mixed media in your stories, and 2, if you are somebody that's just getting into horror, then this will probably be a good one for you. But overall, I had a good time. My last 3-star read, and I actually ended up enjoying this one a little bit more. This is one of the stories I had absolutely no expectations. I did not know how I was going to feel about it. I had an arc of this, but I ended up getting a physical copy sent to me by the publisher. But this is Moonsick by Tom O'Donnell. I think this is their debut novel, but this is a young adult horror thriller. So in this one, these poor people are dealing with a virus. They have been like in a pandemic for like 5 years. And this particular virus, it's like I want to call it rotavirus, but that's not what it is. It's a rabies, something about rabies. It's some sort of rabies virus where if you contract this, then on a full moon, you will turn into a werewolf. At the start of this, there is no cure. People have just been dealing with it. So anytime you go somewhere, they do have the options for like rapid testing to make sure you're not a werewolf. If you are found to be a werewolf, there is a group of officers that go around on full moons, and they will shoot you dead or take you to quarantine. It seems like they just like shooting these people dead. So that's probably what's going to happen to you if you're found to have this virus. But on full moons, the whole world goes on lockdown until the full moon is over, and then you just resume life as normal. This is transmitted through saliva. So that's the world. So our main character that we're following is this high school senior, Heidi. One day during one of the lockdowns, because of a full moon, her house is getting robbed. And while her house is being robbed, somehow a werewolf comes in and wreaks havoc. And the story just kind of goes off from there. I'm not going to say too much more, but this was actually a wild ride. This was way more entertaining than I thought it was going to be. I will say parts of this felt a little angsty because we're dealing with teenagers, their emotions, their relationships, their friendships. But this also has a lot of action. At times, it does get a little graphic. Now, it sounds like I'm really loving this book, right? But I only gave it 3 stars. The only reason why I rated this 3 stars and I didn't rate it higher is because towards the end, I didn't really like the direction the story went. I didn't really care for the ending. I understand what the author was trying to do. Of course, there's some commentary in here with pandemics and basically how the government actually makes money from pandemics. So they're not really in a rush to like find cures for said virus. So there's a lot of commentary on that. And I think this author really drilled it home at the end of it. But overall, I had a good time with this. This is definitely a book that I would recommend. If you are a YA reader, I would definitely recommend. And I really do want to check out something else from this author. So now we're jumping into my 4-star reads. And the first one that I read is The Scammer by Tiffany D. Jackson. This is a young adult psychological mystery. And I had no idea that Tiffany D. Jackson was coming out with another book. I read a middle grade book that she came out with over the summer, which I really enjoyed, but I didn't know she was coming out with this during the fall. But I started seeing a lot of people on Bookstagram talk about it, and a lot of people really loved it. So of course, I had to pick this up. So I was actually able to listen to this from Libro FM. It was one of like their early release copies for influencers. In this one, we're following this college freshman, Jordan. And I believe she's mixed, but she decides that she wants to go to a HBCU against her parents' wishes, who wanted her to go to a better school, which would be an Ivy League, which was Harvard. But Jordan wants to go to a HBCU. She wants to feel the culture. She wants to be around her peers, and she wants that experience. So she goes. She ends up getting this suite with like 3 other girls. When she first gets to college, everything is great, enjoying her classes, having fun with her friends. Now, one of the girls says that her brother has just been released from jail and he needs a place to stay for a little bit. The girls are a little hesitant, but they're like, yeah, he can stay. His name is Devontae. So he comes. Child, Devontae is a hot mess. So he comes to stay at their suite and he overstays his welcome, number 1. Number 2, he starts spewing all of these facts to these girls, just filling their heads up with nonsense about white people and how racist they are and how Black people should live a certain way, and just like all kinds of just madness. It's to the point where he starts to kind of control the things that they eat. He controls what they wear, how they wear their hair. He starts to talk about certain things they should and should not do. Where he lost me, I don't know why this particular thing really bothered me, but the girls wanted to go out for homecoming, their first homecoming for college, and he kind of like guilt tripped them into not going by saying something to the effect of, why would you want to go out and party and drink the white man's liquor? I'm like, what? Why can't these girls have fun? He was an infuriating character. But anyway, so they're dealing with him. And in the midst of all of this, Jordan starts to realize something might not be quite right with Devontae. And then one of her roommates goes missing and the story just kind of takes off from there. Like I just said, Devontae is so infuriating. He's annoying. I was physically getting upset upset listening to him talk and the things that he was saying. I have never rolled my eyes so much. And I believe that was Tiffany D. Jackson's point. She wanted to make him an infuriating character, and she succeeded. So if you haven't guessed it, this book basically is about cults and how vulnerable our young people are, especially, you know, being out in college. First time, a lot of them are being away from their families, and they're very susceptible to stuff and to information. And it's easy for them to believe whatever it is that somebody is trying to tell them. I actually liked all of that. The reason why this isn't getting a 5-star for me is because I felt like Tiffany at a certain point was really heavy-handed in her messaging. It was, I think, more than half of the book was us just listening to Devontae kind of brainwash these girls. And I almost forgot that there was supposed to be a mystery. It was way more than halfway before somebody even went missing and we even jumped into any of that. So while I did like this story, like I really enjoyed it, I did feel like parts of it was really long. And like I said, I just think that the commentary was a little too heavy-handed for my liking. But other than that, this was a solid read from Tiffany D. Jackson. The next story, I actually have to look at my notes because the title of this book is so long. The title of the next book that I actually listened to is called To All the Thugs I Loved That Didn't Love Me Back by Jaquel J. This is an adult fiction. This is another one that I listened to from Libro FM. Now, I have actually heard quite a few people talking about this author, Jaquel J. And since I saw this was available, I decided to give this one a shot. Really enjoyed this one. This was like the kind of mess, and y'all know I love me some mess. This was the kind of mess that I enjoyed. Before I even talk about what this book is about, I'm just gonna tell you right now, I hated the name for some of these characters. I just could not get behind it. So we're following this guy, his name is Polite. Polite, Polite. And he is just getting out of jail, and he was actually set up. Somebody set him up, and he ended up in jail for like 5 years. And right before he got out, he told his older brother, Bless, like B-L-E-S-S, like God bless you. Polite told Bless that he wanted to become a rapper. And so while Polite was in jail, Bless was like establishing this record label and all of that, so that when Polite got out of jail, he would be able to become a rapper. So that's what happened. Then we follow these two girls. One of them is Ace. She is like a really popular blogger. And then we follow her friend Sin, which is actually short for Sinclair, who is like a wedding planner. These two women actually get wrapped up with these two men, and things happen. There's a lot of drama with like baby daddies and ex-boyfriends, and yeah, I mean, you can only imagine. The end of this landed on a huge cliffhanger where we find out some information about why Polite went to jail and how that ties in to these two women. So that's where we left off in that story. I love this. It was short. It was only like 6 hours, so I was able to listen to it in a day. Like I said, this was some mess that I needed. It was like different from the other stuff that I was reading and listening to, so this just hit the spot. I believe there are 4 books in this series. I already have book 2, so I will get to that at some point soon. But this was really good, and I'm happy that I finally picked up something from this author, because like I said, I've been hearing about this author, and this was a great place to start. Another 4-star read. This is The Last Man on Earth by Shay Sanders. This is a adult survival romance. I've never read a survival romance, and after reading this one, I want to read more. So in this, we're following another rapper. His name is Villain, and Villain and his crew are flying to Rio de Janeiro for his bachelor party because he is about to get married. The flight attendant that we're following, her name is Ariana. And when they meet, Villain and his crew are very rude, very, very rude to her. but nonetheless, she has a job to do. So they're flying to Rio and they hit some really bad turbulence. So bad that the plane crashes on this island. And the only two people that survive are Villain and Ariana, aka Ari. And they are trying to survive on this island. And we watch them survive on this island. And while they're trying to survive on this island, Villain and Ari get really close. They develop this bond and a romance takes off from there. I really enjoyed this. I thought that this was going to be a 5-star read for me, but there's a couple of things that didn't quite work for me. Yes, I really loved the survival aspect. Like I said, I loved when they were on the island. I did also really liked their romance and how it was kind of slow burn. It was a little bit before something happened between them, but I liked it because I was waiting and I was ready when stuff finally started happening. However, towards the end of the book, I felt like it was rushed. I felt like we needed just as much time. The same amount of time that we got on the island was the same amount of time we needed at the end of the book. So in the story, there's an age gap. So Ari is actually 37 and Villain is 27. So there's a 10-year age gap. And I don't mind the age gap, but for me, if we're gonna have an age gap, I feel like I need to feel that these characters are different in ages. And I didn't feel that. If you would not have told me that she was 37, I would not have believed that she was 37. I actually would have thought that he was older just because of where he was in his life. The things that he was going through at that time would be something that I would expect from an older person. So I just kind of feel like for age gaps, they just need to make sense. And I need to make sure that whoever is the older one feels like the older one. And what I have been coming across lately is it always feels like the opposite. But nonetheless, overall, I really enjoyed this story. I'm so happy that it was picked for my book club. I just finished this. We are actually going to talk about this tomorrow, so I'm curious to see what everybody else thought. But this was a great book. This is something that I would highly recommend. I was so entertained, and I'm looking forward to the next book by this author. The last book that we have here is How Freakin Romantic by Emily Harding. Now, I'm not gonna lie. I was not expecting much from this. This is a adult romance, by the way. And when I picked this from Book of the Month, I just picked it because I wanted to. Not necessarily thinking that I was going to enjoy this as much as I did, especially after reading a lot of the reviews. Doesn't seem like this is hitting with a lot of people, but it worked for me. So in this, we're following our main character, Beatrice. She goes by B. And she is in like her 3rd year at law school. So she's about to take the bar and become a lawyer. So she has a really tight-knit group of friends, and 2 of her friends are actually in the process of getting a divorce. So she does not like how this divorce is being handled. So she actually goes to her guy friend's lawyer and basically cusses him out at his office, and then she like stalks off. Later, she comes to find out that she is actually going to have to work with him as his teaching assistant while he fills in for the professor that she's actually working for. So this is, to me, like a one-sided enemies to lovers, because the guy, Nate, is really chill and B just can't stand him because of how she thinks he's handling her friend's divorce. So the story just kind of takes off from there, and obviously a romance happens at some point. What I have seen that a lot of people said they don't like is the character of Beatrice. I actually really liked her. I thought that she was kind of relatable. So she got a lot going on up in her head. She does not like to be vulnerable. She pushes people away, but she also takes care of other people. Like, she really takes care of her friends, and she tends to neglect her own needs. I can relate with that. So I really liked her as a character. I liked that she was balanced out by Nate, who has this really calm demeanor, and he kind of just lets her rant before he like interjects. And I like that this was kind of slow burn. It was a while before something happened. It turned from like one-sided enemies to lovers to friends to lovers. And I really enjoyed the end and how their relationship basically progressed. I don't know. This was just I enjoyed it. I think I actually listened to this on audio, but I think I might have just listened to this at a time where I was needing something like this, and I really enjoyed it. So those are all of the books that I have to share with you guys today. If you have read any of these, please let me know your thoughts down below, but I will see you guys next time.